fighting a massive invasion. Total devastation.
Is a strike imminent tonight, and what would the longer-term implications be? Let's bring in retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and the host of War Stories, and New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Gentlemen, great to have both of you with us tonight.
Great to be with you.
So as we know, the president is in conversations domestically here and also with our potential allies. Let's talk about the fact that in the region there are a lot of folks who think that we need Arab partners in this. Luke Coffey, who's the director of the Allison Center for Foreign Policy at Heritage, says this: I think it would be worth the diplomatic legwork that it would require. It would send a very strong message if Arab countries participated. Congressman, what are the odds?
It's essential. It's so important for us to be able to see some of these countries that are actually quite wealthy, whether it's Saudi Arabia or UAE or the Qataris. Jordan has been involved in a way with what's been going on in Syria to a certain extent. Israel has been involved. But as far as some of these other Arab countries that exist in the region, I think it's imperative. They're all concerned about Iranian aggression. Well, this is the moment to push back. If you don't push back right now, it's only going to get worse.
Colonel, if you were overseeing or suggesting potential options to the administration, military in nature, what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, you have to get enough assets in the region, and we're not there yet. I remember 32 years ago tonight, I was sitting in a planning cell picking targets in a place called Libya, because on the 5th of April, Muammar Gaddafi had detonated a bomb, and one of his agents had detonated a bomb at a discotheque in West Germany. And it took 10 days to get the assets in place, to make all the arrangements. If you're going to use more than just a handful of aircraft, you're going to have to have places to recover them. You're going to have places refuel and rearm. You have to have search and rescue assets in place. And so I think there were a lot of people thinking maybe it was going to happen tonight, and I couldn't imagine it.
It takes time
to
get everything in place. How important is Turkey in this as well?
Well, Turkey is very important because Turkey has closed Incirlik Air Base, which is a NATO air base. Erdogan is not a friend. And Erdogan doesn't particularly care for the Assad regime, but on the other hand, obviously he doesn't care much for us because he's not been helping us much at all. At the end of the day, you're going to have Incirlik as a recovery base because you're not going to be able to land aircraft except in extremis in places like Jordan and Israel. Israel could be very helpful in terms of search and rescue, and it takes time to place those assets in position so that they'd be there to recover downed air crews.
And back over on Capitol Hill, there's been some discussion. We talked about last night, Senator Mike Lee over on the Senate side saying if there's going to be a robust military response, that the president needs to come to Congress for that. In the meantime, you also have Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal today talking about what kind of assets we need to have, what kind of reaction we need to have, and who needs to be held responsible. Here's what he says.
There has to be robust reaction in action, not just words or rhetoric. The response has to have a military component against Bashar al-Assad, but it also has to send a message to his enablers.
Okay, so a military response to Assad, but also it has to send a message to his enablers. The president's called out Putin by name. He's called out Iran as well. So where do we go with that?
Well, so we have all these different countries, different approaches with each. Now, within Syria, where you could be targeting command and control, which could be infrastructure, it could be personnel. It may not just be Syrian, it may also be Iranian. There might be ways to deliver the chemical weapon. Maybe it's part of their air force, or it's part of their infrastructure of how they are able to carry out the chemical attack. But with Iran, we have a whole other debate going on, the future of the Iran nuclear deal, the effort to ramp up sanctions, which is that's what brought the Iranians to the table in the first place when you saw the negotiation and deal take place during President Obama's term. Same thing with Russia, where we're talking about sanctions and what leverage we have. There's a debate at the UN Security Council. So that will continue, and Ambassador Haley countering the narrative that the Russians and others are trying to put out. So all of that needs to take place as well. I expect what we saw a year ago to take place again. I do expect there to be a strike, but I don't think it's just going to be that. And last time where it was just us, now we're seeing Britain and the French. So I think there's going to be more of a coalition. I think it's going to be us utilizing multiple leverages of the DIME principle, diplomacy, information, military, economics. And I look forward to it being quite effective.
And quickly, Colonel, any guess on a timeline?
I'd say it's probably a little bit more than 72 hours. I really don't know, but I know where certain assets are, and they're moving in the right direction. But Again, it took Ronald Reagan 10 days. I mean, he made the decision on the 7th of April. The actual attack went on tax day. I'd look around for tax day or later.
The UN Security Council has held an emergency meeting in New York. At that meeting, both Russian and US proposals on a mechanism to investigate Syria's alleged chemical attack failed to pass through. Washington's resolution was vetoed by Moscow, while 2 consecutive Russian proposed drafts then failed to get the necessary minimum votes. Well, for the details, let's cross live now to RT's Caleb Morpin in New York. Hi there, Caleb. So can you tell us the latest?
Well, when the meeting concluded, there was no resolution. The countries that make up the 15-member body that lead the United Nations had not come to an agreement. Now, representing Russia, Nebenzia of the Russian Federation, he spoke and he basically pointed out that Russia's resolution would have mandated that the OPCW chemical experts that are on their way to Syria actually visit the site in Duma and actually visit the site where the alleged chemical attack took place and get to the bottom of what exactly happened. Not simply assign blame, but determine what went on in Duma. Furthermore, Russia was willing to provide military escorts and basically make sure that the chemical experts were safe when they visited the site. Now, Nebenzia was quite clear about the threat that vetoing this resolution posed and how the world is in kind of a dangerous situation as we see a clear disagreement over Syria and how to move forward. This is the representative of the Russian Federation speaking to the UN Security Council.
This is something that says a lot to us and worries us a lot. It's not clear to us why they voted against the resolution. Maybe the UK ambassador has given an answer to it. They simply should have said they were against it because it was Russia's resolution. You say we are good at playing games, but I would say you are good at threatening. And your threats to Syria worry us a lot.
Now, Nikki Haley, representing the United States, when she spoke, she criticized and urged countries to vote against Russia's resolution because she said that it gave Russia too much power and, as she put it, put them in the driver's seat. That was her logic and her argument. Nebenzia characterized the U.S. resolution as simply recreating the gym, and now Nikki Haley said that the Russian resolution, well, this is what she had to say about it. Nikki Haley.
The resolution puts Russia and the Assad regime itself in the driver's seat for making arrangements for the fact-finding mission investigators. We're just supposed to trust that the same government who says everything about the Duma attack was fake will work in good faith with the OPCW.
Now, Russia's medical experts and chemical experts have visited the site of the alleged chemical attack in Duma, and they are saying they just don't see the evidence. They're not finding traces of the chemical, they're not finding victims in hospitals or dead bodies, and furthermore, they're not finding any eyewitnesses that say they saw an attack take place. Now, interestingly, we have heard from Heather Nauert, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, and unlike Nikki Haley and some of the other forces, she is not ready to say who is to blame for this attack. She says that the State Department of the United States does not know who carried out this chemical attack. This is Heather Nauert of the U.S. State Department.
Now, we do know that some sort of a substance was used, a chemical was used. We're just not sure at this point today exactly what was used.
Now, at this point, chemical inspectors from the OPCW, chemical experts, technicians, are on their way to Syria. But the 15-member body that leads the United Nations has not agreed on what their mission will be. Both resolutions, the one from Russia and the one from the United States, have been defeated. They've been vetoed. So it's pretty clear that there is not unity in the international community about what the OPCW will be doing. Now, every country agreed that the use of chemical weapons was unacceptable, and they also agreed that there needed to be an investigation to determine what exactly happened. However, the nature of that investigation, that was the point of disagreement. And there was not a resolution. At this point, there is not a unified agreement, and there is not a resolution that's been passed by the 15-member body, the United Nations Security Council, which leads the United Nations.
With the UN in deadlock over the suspected chemical attack in Syria, The diplomatic option for US President Donald Trump's so-called forceful response appears to have disappeared. Targeted economic sanctions against Syria and its allies Iran and Russia could still be used. A unilateral military strike like the one ordered last year from US Navy ships in the Mediterranean on a Syrian airbase is a possibility. But France and the UK could be involved this time.
Part of the question that is sort of hanging out there is what would really be the underlying goal of a strike other than to simply be shown to be responding? Would it actually accomplish something militarily or politically?
In the meantime, members of the chemical weapons watchdog, the OPCW, are preparing to visit the site of the suspected attack to determine if chemicals were used, but not to assign blame.
Britain's controversial former Prime Minister Tony Blair has bid to push his country into yet another military conflict, this time in Syria. In an interview, Blair claimed that the UK should back a US intervention against Damascus in the wake of the alleged chemical attack. The man who teamed up with Washington to invade Iraq in 2003 had this to say.
This would be action in support of military intervention by the US. If you don't respond to this, to the use of chemical weapons against civilians, then obviously, we're ignoring what the international community has said, which is that this is unacceptable and those that use such methods should be held to account. Even if we take the action, which I think we will have to do, it doesn't solve the longer-term question of what happens in Syria.
I gave the order for British forces to take part in military action in Iraq. My judgment as Prime Minister is that this threat is real, growing, and of an entirely different nature to any conventional threat to our security that Britain has faced before.
The programme in the form that we thought it was did not exist in the way that we thought. So I can apologise for that. I can also apologise, by the way, for some of the mistakes in planning and certainly our mistake in our understanding of what would happen once you removed the regime. For all of this, I express more sorrow, regret, and apology than you may ever know or can believe.
Well, the Iraq inquiry, also known as the Chilcot Report, was published in 2016 and uncovered, quote, mistakes in a 6-year-long UK campaign in Iraq. The report revealed that there was no imminent threat to the UK or urgent need for military action against Saddam Hussein's government. It also highlighted that Blair's certainty that Iraq was stockpiling weapons of mass destruction, including chemical and biological agents, was unjustified. The UK lost 179 servicemen and women during the campaign. It also claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians. In 2016, a petition was uploaded on the UK's parliamentary website for the arrest of Blair for his role in the destruction of Iraq. More than 20,000 signed the petition before it was removed.